The Abyss is one of the most frequent topics talked about in the game's world. A mass-invading force that exhibits a great level of power and sentience has captivated players and audiences alike since the game's launch. From an ominous parasite that corrupted a dragon's mind, to a fully fledged swarm of corruptive forces killing anything in its path. From Nahida's voice line, she describes the Abyss as an entity that manifests its power in a manner that is most devastating to the place in question. In the game's lore, a number of events have been the effect of this Abyss. To name a few, the withering from Sumeru, the oozing filth from the chasm, and the dropping of the celestial nails. As we get closer to the end of Teyvat's storyline, it's about time we should finally get some answers about this mysterious entity. Now, with the new book titled Men of Lithin, despite being a fantasy novel, I think there are still some layers of truth behind it. So, let's talk about it. To start with the book description, there's a novel that became quite popular among Natlan, and after the defeat of Gusoithoth, some tribesmen of Natlan went outside and visited Fontaine looking for the author named Khaenri'ahns. This author seems to be a celebrated author from Fontaine, whose work is supposed to have been translated into the language of Natlan. But to their disappointment, they didn't find any trace of the original work or any record of the author named Khaenri'ahns. This suggests that either the book doesn't exist in Fontaine, or it was somehow never known there. Even locals in Fontaine don't recognize the name Khaenri'ahns. It's clear that it's a mispronounced version of the term Khaenri'ahns, and it's further highlighted by the book's contents. It also has some mysterious origin involving some lost knowledge. So here, despite Men of Lithin being labeled as a popular fantasy novel, there are things mentioned here that are quite shocking and could be shown in future versions. It's also quite strange those from Natlan who visited Fontaine can't find the original book, and there's some hint it's another harbinger doing the work behind it. So, with the first line, it says, "It is the 3rd millennium since the flame was stolen. There has never been an age as enlightened and reasoned as this." Here it marks a time that 3,000 years have passed since the Sage of the Stolen Flame stole a seed of phlogiston, and a reference to the oldest book known to us, which is the Byakuya Koku collection, due to the line "since records began." With the next lines, I think it's mostly fiction, and whether or not this will be the case in Genshin's story moving forward, I might be wrong in this. However, let's talk about the things that could be true after this summary. To condense its story, the book seems to visualize a futuristic world where the discovery of a golden liquid called Lithin has revolutionized society. It powers technological advancements like automated farming and air travel, making it an important resource to this civilization. However, the substance discovery and control by the Technocratic Assembly, which is a powerful governing body in this civilization, have sparked tensions between cities, with increasing conflicts over its supply and distribution. So, this Technocratic Assembly holds a grand event called the Continental Fair to showcase its innovations and maintain a sense of peace, despite the growing threat of war due to Lithin importance. Now, the book's protagonist, described as a detective, is tasked with investigating a recent incident that happened in a city called South, where insurrectionists sabotaged a Lithin transfer hub, claiming that this Lithin is a demonic gift. With this incident, South's ruler accuses the Metropolitan authorities of inciting the unrest to provoke war, and the detective must uncover the truth. In the last line of Volume 1, this detective meets Aqua, an agent from the Technocratic Assembly, and they begin the investigation together. The detective is uninterested in the distractions of the fair, focusing instead on uncovering the truth behind the insurrection and the looming political instability threatening the cities. In Volume 2, it now highlights that the detective and Aqua have been tracking those insurrectionists for weeks, who we now learn are called the Unenlightened. They go to this group's hideout, described as a decrepit church in the shadow of a hulking bridge. However, before they go in, they decide to wait as the insurrectionists leave their hideout. As they enter the hideout, the church is dark, filled with strange metal vats labeled Ignorance, which raises questions about this group's true purpose. As the detective explores the church, he encounters a blind man with a grotesque appearance suggesting something unnatural, possibly a result of the group's experiments or beliefs. When the protagonist opens one of the vats, the strong formaldehyde-like smell overwhelms them, and an eerie figure approaches the detective, asking if they've seen it. A line saying, "You saw it, didn't you, unenlightened one?" In the chaos that follows, the detective manages to escape with one of the strange vats as evidence. However, as they flee, they are confronted by another terrifying figure, a combination of a skeleton and machine, seemingly connected to the group. This encounter reveals that the unenlightened one may be more than just a group of technophobes, or in the book termed as Luddites, meaning someone who hates technology. Anyways, this suggests a deeper, more sinister conspiracy at play, and the detective is left with a chilling realization that they are involved in something far darker than they originally thought. So honestly, as I was reading this, I was imagining a scenario from Outlast where the player goes to an asylum and sees different kinds of experiments done on people. Now, moving to the last volume, the whole book eerily reveals a profound and unsettling truth about this world. It begins to uncover the true nature of the beings they've been interacting with. The person previously known as Akra is revealed to be one of the humans described as the last specimen of its kind in the world. Now, it seems that these humans are now bioengineered energy beings, having transferred their essence into Lithin, the energy form I mentioned earlier. And they did this after their civilization was destroyed in a global war. So they designed the surface-dwelling species, or where Akra refers to them as pugs, beagles, and little gray men. These surface-dwelling species were to thrive in the polluted environment they created, controlling the surface world's fate to ultimately lead to its self-destruction and the eventual return of the ancient beings. In the last lines of the book, the detective learns that the group he was hunting, the unenlightened, are the few from this ancient civilization who resisted merging into a collective singular wisdom, preserving their individuality instead. As a shock, the detective is revealed to be the leader of these unenlightened, who have lived through many lives, witnessing the history of the surface dwellers. These unenlightened hold on to the hope that they can one day reclaim their individuality and choose their own fate, even as the ancient beings orchestrate the future of humanity's destruction. The book then ends with the detective having to choose between two themes, identity or resistance. Will this detective choose to return to the fold of the collective wisdom, or will they continue the resistance, preserving their individuality? You see, there's a lot of themes here that could be hints to the overall story of Genshin Impact. So, moving now to the lore behind this book. What is Lithin? In the book, it's a golden liquid and is seen as the lifeblood of human civilization. But in-game, this is basically azazite, these yellow crystal-shaped batteries filled with elemental energy used by the Khaenri'ahns. It's also interesting that the book mentions how this lithin was used to create automated tilling machines, which references the field tillers in the game. With Lithin, it was also mentioned that it was discovered 100 years ago in an ancient underground city called Natlantea. To recall, Natlantea was first mentioned in the Narcissan Kreutz Order quest, talking about the different ages that happened in Teyvat. For Natlantea, it describes an age of triumph over the evil dragon, pointing to the time where Xbalanque killed Shu'Kotl. Next, about the humans. Here in context from the book, it seems that the original humans are just the dragons. Since they were the original sentient life forms of Teyvat, they are somewhat the humans of the planet. However, when the primordial one came and killed most of these dragons living on the planet, he then created the first humans, which began the first civilization described in the Before Sun and Moon book, and those who owned these different ruins scattered all around. However, when Nibelung came imbued with the Abyss and fought against the Primordial One, this not only deformed the whole landscape, it also made Teyvat inhospitable, taking Chernobyl as an example. Here, the Primordial One seems to have become dormant, being in a resting state, most likely burned out by playing Genshin too much. Anyways, after this war, the surviving real humans, dragons, went underground, sealing their bodies off for preservation and uploading their consciousness into a hive mind. Meanwhile, they also create fake humans, who can be synthetic humans which are supposed to live on the surface in their stead. These fake humans are unknowingly supposed to be cleaning up the environment and creating an environment for which the real humans can thrive and come back to in the future. To simply put, these fake humans are the Wali, whose given purpose is to clean the waste-covered earth. These fake humans are able to live in these conditions because of a line from the book where it says, "Their biological functions are in perfect contrast to our own. The environment in which we thrive is deathly toxic to them," and vice versa. So who could be these fake humans that cannot live in situations where dragons thrive, but can survive in places where the abyss is present? Since we lack the info for this based on the given lore we have, the answer to this question is yet to be known. Still, there is this line in the book that says, once the surface dwellers discovered Lithin and used it to advance their civilization, the ancient beings from beneath the earth would start to re-emerge. And so they wait for the day when surface civilization destroys itself, a catastrophe that will give them new life. The ancient beings being the dragons and the surface dwellers being the fake humans. Here this leads to this next part, and take this with a grain of salt. A possible scenario is that these fake humans are the Khaenri'ahns, synthetic humans who were created with temperaments that would lead them to destroy the current state of the world so that it could be hospitable to the original inhabitants of Teyvat once more, which are the dragons. They also discovered Lithin, being the azazite, and used it to create the ruin guards or field tillers, and many more different technologies. Given what we've seen of the Khaenri'ahns so far, it seems like they were just tools to jumpstart a new age for humanity. It also was noted that there were these half-blooded Khaenri'ahns and full-blooded Khaenri'ahns who had different side effects after being contaminated with the abyss. To add to that, there is also this possible idea that the full-blooded Khaenri'ahns, the fake humans created by the dragons, thrive with the abyss, since if we recall what Dainsleif said, "We humans have our humanity. We will defy this world with a power from beyond." Perhaps this power is indicating the abyss. Lastly, this book, Men of Lithin, seems to be based on the 1927 movie Metropolis, directed by Fritz Lang. It explores the themes of the dehumanizing effects of industrialization and the tension between technology and humanity. We can also see this reference with the book's cover copying the movie poster, but with the significant difference of half of the robot's face being explicitly human. Now to end this video, I admit the lore is becoming more and more confusing sometimes, especially as a new player. It started out as a primal story about finding a lost sibling, then turning out to these different kinds of humans, with dragons and AI. So, in a specific point of view, it kind of becomes a bit complicated. Even I get lost in what I'm reading, but hopefully more artifacts or other books can clarify this, so that we can make another video that could clearly explain the meaning behind this story. As always, if you've made it this far, thank you for watching the video. My name is KlemenTime. Be safe and stay tuned.